Today we are both here. It's kind of a special event. My name is Jessie Johnson, in case you don't know me. I'm the CEO and founder of Jessie Johnson Coaching, a 7-figure personal development company. And
7 of them, huh?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is my, we were listening to some song this morning with the words trophy wife, and I was fantasizing that you would introduce me as your trophy wife. This is my non-trophy husband.
I don't really understand the concept of trophy wife, trophy husband.
Yeah.
But I like trophy, like the word.
Yeah,
exactly. And wife together. Everyone, meet my trophy wife, Jessie Johnson.
And in case you don't know, this is the amazing SriKala, my husband, and in today's conversation, collaborator and thought partner. The reason that we decided to come on and do this together today, give us a little shout out if you can hear us.
Yeah.
If you, just so we know that you're here. Hi,
yes,
April.
Yes.
Hi, Brittany. Great to be with you.
Welcome everyone.
Because there I go. 1 second. There we go. I don't actually even know what happened last week, but you coined the phrase Manifestors Anonymous.
Yes, and yes, this is what we're in. We're in Manifestors Anonymous. Welcome to the circle. We should create tenets and stuff. You know?
Yeah. We're working on it. This is developmental stages.
Yeah. And for those that don't know the term, of course, we're talking about Alcohol Anonymous, but removing the word alcohol and adding Manifestors Anonymous, like rehabilitation.
That's right.
For
people who have gotten hooked on the fantasy of manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
They're manifestation junkies who aren't actually experiencing all the things, in contrast to reality junkies or creation junkies, or we're looking for language here. Actualization, yeah.
Junkies. I like that.
Yeah.
Actualization. It's long though.
The thing is that manifestation, if we look it up in the dictionary, definitely we're using it as a synonym, but in this context, we're referring specifically to people who use that word but don't necessarily create the shit they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some notes here. I'm just going to point to them. I think we should start here because that's where it kind of originated.
You know, I feel like it's not just the people that don't create the things that they are looking to manifest. It is that. Mm. And then it is also the ego using the manifestation as a way to keep you confined.
Yeah.
You know? And I say that because I can see in my own life where that happens, where I'm like, oh, manifestation, if I think about something positively, it'll come. If I think about something negatively, that will come too. And so avoiding being in the body with all the feelings, being in the body with all the... And so, I see tendencies in my own mind, in my own heart, to be like, can't think about that because it's gonna, lightning's gonna strike, or
Okay, so what I'm hearing as you're talking more is that we're really making a distinction between conditional living and unconditional living.
Mm.
Or conditional living, living feels like the right word. It's and it's interesting, throughout this conversation, we've talked about a lot of teachers that use this language, the language that we've used already, and some language that we're going to use. These words mean different things.
Yes.
Depending on the context. And so I think it's also really important to acknowledge that we're going to the energy underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Rochelle. Hi, Erica.
Welcome.
April, I'm curious why this is so perfect. Hi, Dortha. What's coming up for you already? I would love to know. What I want to share the origin because I feel like it'll help people
let's
bring
share the
this
origin.
in.
Sounds good.
So we've been having Sri and I not only fulfill programs together. We took people to India. We co-lead a variety of events and have for a decade, really. But now, increasingly, we're selling together and teaching sales together and talking about sales in our free time.
And who would have known that it would be so much fun to be on sales calls together?
It's really amazing.
It's super fun. Super fun.
We had our first sales conversation together just over a year ago also. So I think it's valuable to name that it's quite a complex thing to have two people in a anyway, we could have a whole separate conversation about that. But Sri is a master and I am a master. And so we're able to have these new level conversations. And in the last 2 weeks, Sri has been really holding down what we call the third question. And those of you who have studied sales with either of us or with our lineage know the third question is the question that's basically like, where's your default setting going to take you? If you keep going the way that you've been going, where does that lead? And how do you feel about that? And the purpose of that question is to help people see clearly that there's a choice in front of them and then make that choice consciously. And if they're in a conversation with us, it's because they want something different than whatever that default setting is. So there should be contrast. It shouldn't be like 6 to 1, half a dozen of the other. It should be like, one direction feels really liberating and exciting and maybe also a little terrifying. And the default setting, probably relative to that, feels pretty small and limited.
What's an example? I feel like I want to go deeper into what's
Specifics.
An example of a third question? Specifics. So,
I asked this question in more than just sales conversations, but sales conversations is so clear.
Yeah.
So,
say I want to be a great swimmer, which I do.
Yeah.
Which I do.
Yeah.
I want to really master that because my family came from the islands, and I'll be damned if I don't know how to really hold it down in the water because where my family came from, it's surrounded by water.
Yeah.
So
it's a liberation tool for you.
Yeah. I want to be an excellent swimmer.
Great.
Second question.
So. Okay, we'll keep it there. So the second question is what happens if you don't, or why haven't you in your life become a good swimmer?
Well, the water is very cold for me sometimes, and I also my mind goes into imagination. I'll see octopuses or sharks.
We gotta watch this octopus teacher movie.
Oh, great!
We're just naming
It'll
that.
probably ease that. And so. Let's use that. Sharks and octopuses and things. My mind's creating all these ideas that will sneak up on me.
Yeah. So the third question, a couple actually came to mind. One version is what happens if you don't become an excellent swimmer? And the other is what happens if you don't overcome your fear of underwater creatures?
Yeah.
And either one will work.
Yeah. Yes.
So then
should I go for it or continue?
Whichever one you do, then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Let's say if I didn't overcome this fear of octopuses and sharks in the ocean, in the shallow part of the ocean.
Yes.
I would not get to experience the ocean. I would be stuck in fear around water. I wouldn't be confident being on a boat. I would have less just excitement around being on a boat.
And then what would happen if you weren't excited?
I would just miss out on a lot of things. A lot of things that amazing people around me do. I just wouldn't get to be a part of it. I would miss out, and it would suck.
So Can we step out of the...
Let's step out.
The meta piece here is like, although the specifics that Sri's sharing are very unique or relatively unique, the energy of what he's sharing is almost universal. Like when you're having a sales conversation and or just asking these questions to help, because they're clarifying questions, they help people get clear. So when you're asking these questions, helping people get clear, it's like in this direction is expansion and growth, in this direction is fear and missing out, in this direction is what I want, in this direction is less than what I want. Mm-hmm. So what we find is very common, and this is the introduction of Manifestors Anonymous, what we find is very common is that the people who have some understanding of how to manifest don't want to answer this third question.
Yeah, it's not easy, or they're like, why should I go over there? You know, if I'm manifesting, then I got to think positively, and I got to, you know, move with all the things that I want. Why should I think about what I don't want? Why should I think about where I will fail? Why should I, you know?
And sometimes they'll say that exact thing, mm-hmm. And sometimes they'll just say, "Oh, that won't happen."
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to manifest it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to become an excellent swimmer. Mm-hmm. Nothing can stop me.
Nothing can stop me. That's a popular response too.
And that's it's so nuanced. It's so subtle, because what that sentiment is so valuable, right? When you want something enough to mm-hmm. just like, nothing will stop me, I'm going to do it. It's really important. And
it's not answering the question.
It's not answering the question. So it's a form of resistance.
And it's good information, nonetheless.
Because then we know that they're in Manifestors Anonymous.
Yes.
Whether they know it or not.
Welcome to the club.
So keep talking. Why has this sort of part of the sales conversation captivated you so much?
Well, you know, when we're doing coaching work, when we're doing work that's transformational, when we're doing work that's meant to expand your terrain and make you more happier, mm-hmm. One of the highlight features of that is to be able to connect with the parts of yourself that are uncomfortable. Connect with...
Why is that important?
That's important because it is where you are. It is what is here in the present moment. And I think a lot of times when we want to go there, and it's in detriment to really falling in love and seeing and acknowledging mm-hmm. what is here. Like if I'm nervous about octopuses, and I don't know, and I don't want to say that, and I don't want to feel that, then we miss the opportunity. We miss opportunities to watch the octopus documentary and kind of nip that in the bud.
But what?
Well, there's an importance to know the range, what a person's range is.
Yeah.
And to be able to say, to be able to look into the possible negative outcome in the future and feel all of the terror and agony that comes along with it, gives you the same capacity and power mm-hmm. to feel the massive potential mm-hmm. of what you do want. Mm-hmm. They go hand in hand. And it's also because what is uncomfortable, what is the fear, the worry, is still happening underneath anyway.
I think this piece is the clear. It's the clearest that you've ever said it.
Mm-hmm. That is happening anyway underneath.
It's happening anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing. We're talking about energetics, not words. And the mm-hmm. third question cleans up the energetics. Mm. So
it's cool. I love that you said that. More about the energetics, not words. Because usually when we're asking the questions, it's like, just want to see if they will go there.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't even matter what people say, you know, what the person on the other side of the sales call.
Are they willing to be
vulnerable? Are they willing to just be vulnerable, come up with some things?
Well, because everybody knows. Everybody has an answer to that. That's the truth.
Yes.
It is never true. Let's just be clear. It's never true that there isn't another option. Every one of our lives is living proof. There are many options.
which is another common answer. I don't know. I don't know what that would be.
It's so funny when you say that, because I'm like, that's a fucking lie. But all right,
Yeah.
whatever. It's like, so the third question for us has become not only really important for the sales conversation, but very relevant data about the capacity that the people that we're talking to have.
Mm.
And I want to like take a little potential detour, and talk about spiritual bypass.
Well, I'll say this one more thing before you say spiritual bypass. Yeah. The potential, the range that we have as humans to take in the feeling of something uncomfortable, and also to take in the feeling of something massively joyful, is part of art. You know, as someone who works with artists, as someone who creates art, and I'm very excited about seeing how creative expression can be taken deep. That's the one space in industry that gets lost, or it's the one space where creative blocks happen. Is because we don't want to just accept and honor the negative side. We don't want to accept and honor the fact that I'm scared as shit of a shark attacking me. But that is content. That's a song right there. That's like, you know, when we watch a TV show, most shows that are only in the positive get canceled. It's annoying because it's some of our most favorite shows, like
very uplifting,
like Sense8, The Messiah. These are all shows that got canceled, and they're freaking epic shows. If you haven't seen them yet, go on Netflix, watch Sense8, watch The Messiah. There's a few other shows that just didn't make it, you know, and they're epic shows, but they're just a little too in the positive side for it to be massively welcomed into the world, you know. As an example, maybe that's not the fully, but as an example, that as humans, we love the range. We love to see the drama, and you know, a great movie script is made up of drama, you know, some kind of battle between the lead, and then the resolve. You know, there must be these things in order for the human spirit to be interested. You know. And so even in that sense, even in the sense of entertainment and art and creativity, to have a range is important to see, you know, and it kind of bleeds over into coaching, into transformation.
It's interesting because I think that maybe these are the more that I hear you talk about range, when you use the word range, I'm thinking unconditional. I think they're connected but distinct. But
yes. They can be taken.
They layer together, and what we're all seeking here, what we're all going home to here, I think is unconditional acceptance, unconditional love, unconditional presence, unconditional here-ness.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm saying we, like, very collectively, I think whenever we experience even just a moment of that unconditional welcome, we weep, we crack open, we transcend, we transform, we heal, we do our soul work happens there. So for us, because that's all we're here to do, really, truly, we have to go there in sales conversations. And just by being, I mean, it's funny because I thought we were going to talk about Manifestors Anonymous. Really, we're talking about sales. This is a sales training video. Because as the salesperson, you want to be able to hold the container for the person that you're talking to go deep there. And it should be uncomfortable. It should be negative. Like it should be asking, you're asking them to describe what happens if you don't get what you want. What does that look like? What is the impact of that? Like, look at it consciously. It's like cause and effect.
Yeah.
Just
what's going on
just
in your
wake
universe?
Up to what you're already doing. And then there's an opportunity to, you know, to love what arises or not. But that's sort of later. You don't even have to do that. And most people, here we are talking about how a lot of people that come to us don't want to talk about that. But it's also true that a lot of people that are in sales conversations don't want to hear about it. They don't want to ask about it. If you avoid looking at that in your own life, you're going to avoid asking other people to look at it in theirs. Mm. And so again, when it comes to just very practically speaking, you want to sell more, you want to have deeper relationships with your clients, you want to help them transform more. Part of your job is to increase your capacity to hold an unconditional container, to increase your range, to be able to go into all the different corners of their highest vision and biggest dreams, as well as their darkest fears and deepest shadow unconsciousness.
Yeah.
And just to connect the dots, that voice that says, nothing will stop me, that's the right voice. That's the right sentiment. And that statement needs to be unconditional. So it's almost like you test out, you give people an opportunity to see how true that sentence is when you ask them to articulate what happens if it doesn't happen. What happens if you don't become an excellent swimmer? Mm. That's where you get to see like how true someone's commitment is, or how serious their investment in this change is. Mm. Because fantasy is a great escape. Like the fantasy.
That's why we like to watch fantasies.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if we can totally fantasize and live in our fantasies and never actually create anything, but experience the escape, the relief of that escape. Mm. And I don't actually anymore. I don't judge that. I don't think that that's wrong. It's just not the same thing. Fantasy and people get hooked on it. People get hooked on the fantasy. And so those are the dreamers. And when I say, again, the language is tricky because I feel like dreamers sometimes means like our favorite people, our favorite visionaries to work with. But I'm talking about like dreamers who never come into creation. Mm. If you're living in fantasy, it's because it feels good. The fantasy feels good. And in order to actually create that fantasy and make it real, you got to be willing to look at what's actually happening that's not the fantasy, the risk that could happen if you commit to the fantasy, all the things that could challenge you, all the things that could scare you, all the things that could, like, what happens when you actually get touched by an octopus or you see a shark tail in the ocean, or like, to anticipate and prepare for those kind of most extreme scenarios. Mm. Otherwise, you won't actually do it.
Yeah.
And that nothing will stop me it's like nothing will stop me as long as nothing tries to stop me. Mm-hmm. But as soon as something tries to stop me, I'm out. And that's
a lie. That's someone lying. That's someone telling a fib. A little wee fib. Nothing will stop me.
Yes. Right. So,
which we've heard a lot. Like, being in this, this
why do you
business,
think we have screens everywhere and media all the time? I mean, all that stuff is designed to meet us in our longing for fantasy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off, though.
No. Yeah, you did.
I still want you to talk though.
Spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
Spiritual bypassing. I'm into it, and at the same time, I'm like, just simmer down, because I feel like a lot of people use that and they're just like, these spiritual bypassing, and I'm just like, why are you getting upset with the spiritual bypassers?
Yeah, I mean, I think. This is everything coming together.
Yeah.
I think that in the past, and maybe this is just true of us as human creatures, but I'm proposing that maybe it's changing. I don't think even maybe, I'm pretty sure that it's changing. I think that in the past paradigm, we really needed escape. We really needed fantasy. We really needed not only to dream, but to not create those dreams. It was like a way of managing our trauma. And so what you're saying about spiritual bypass, same. Like spiritual bypass is a way of managing trauma, and it's not wrong. It's not bad.
What's an example of spiritual bypassing?
I'll define it in a moment.
Okay.
However, I believe that the times are changing. Our human evolution is changing, and we are now positioned to actually make these things real. We have technology to make our dreams real in a way that we didn't used to. Maybe some people did, but it wasn't accessible to everybody. Maybe it's just changed. I really think our DNA is changing.
Mm-hmm.
So
the planet's moving faster, technology is moving faster, like everything is happening in support of us creating things faster. Even on a just physical level.
Yes.
You know, things are becoming smaller, and like
the information is available to maybe not everyone, but so many more people. So it's like our purpose here in having this conversation is clarifying, as the sales conversation's purpose is to clarify so that you can make a conscious choice about what you actually want. So
some fun stuff in here.
Yeah, fun stuff is coming in the chat. Thank you guys. So I've heard two beautiful definitions of spiritual bypass, both of which I find really helpful. The one that I'm going to use today is like the classic. A bypass is a highway that takes you around the city. It's like it takes you away from the activity so you don't have to get bogged down by traffic. A spiritual bypass, classical definition, is an activity which actually, it looks like it's going to take you close to your spiritual destination, but it actually doesn't take you there. So it's like you don't, if you're trying to get to the nectar, the spiritual nectar, you're trying to get to enlightenment, you're trying to get to devotional service, you're trying to get to some peak experience of consciousness, bliss, love, spiritual connection, communion with God, whatever you're seeking spiritually, a spiritual bypass will take you like somewhere in proximity to that, but it won't let you exit. It won't let you actually go to the destination. It's designed to take you somewhere else. Okay? So again, taking all the judgment out of it, it's a confusing place for people. That's why people talk about it so much. And there's a beautiful book.
It'd be fun to see a sign on the road, on the highway.
Yeah.
It says spiritual bypass this way.
Yeah. I just want to highlight this book, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa, which talks about this a lot. And I think I'm referencing this.
Classic
book.
Bhagavad-Gita also.
Yeah. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah. Bhagavad-Gita was based off of a possible spiritual bypass, which is really cool because it's Bhagavad-Gita is a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. Krishna, who's seen as a form of God, a presentation of the divine, God himself showing up to participate. And Arjuna, a devotee of God, and they're having a dialogue. And this is the Bhagavad Gita is like the Bible of India. It's like a massive, very much loved book in the world, and ascribed to be one of the oldest philosophies of all time. And in the story, there's a moment in the first chapter where there's a war happening. Arjuna's got to fight this war. Unfortunately, brothers, uncles, cousins, teachers on the other side mixed, some on this side, some on that side, but he's got to fight. And Krishna, in this layout, Krishna, who is God himself, is like, hey, you ready to do this? We're doing this. This is what you're supposed to be doing, you know?
Yeah.
And Arjuna, he's like,
don't take the bypass.
Yeah. Arjuna's like, hey, take me out to the center of the field so I can just see what's going on before the war starts. He's like, take me out to the center. And he's like, all right. Krishna's like, all right, you wanna see what's going on first? I'm open to that. And then he takes Arjuna out to the center, and Arjuna sees what's going on, and he's just like, hell no.
I'm taking the bypass.
I'm not
I don't want to
doing
do this.
Yeah, he's like, I'd rather go to the mountains and meditate. I'd rather do anything else but fight right now. And so he throws his bow down, and then the Bhagavad-Gita begins. Yeah. So the Bhagavad-Gita begins on a possible bypass.
This is really, I don't think I've ever put this together. It's very powerful.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever said it in this way before. So, score.
So, I think actually maybe the heart of the contemporary spiritual bypass is simply the idea that to be spiritual means to be blissful and calm, and that everything that's not blissful and calm is not spiritual. Which brings us back to our initial thing of like increasing capacity to hold a container for every part of experience. That's spiritual. That's why money is spiritual. That's why sales is spiritual. Not even just because I'm like tacking on that label. Like, no. When you really bring your consciousness to things, it's all fucking spiritual.
At the core of it, it's spiritual.
And I'm on a fucking stage preaching right now and using the word fuck. Like, that's spiritual. That there's nothing that you can't actually get inside that container. Yeah. Also Bhagavad-Gita addresses that. So it's tricky because in spiritual practice, we are like, I'm doing loving kindness meditation every day, and I am getting more calm, and I am getting more loving, and I am getting more kind. Like, as I do the practice, that's true. And part of what makes it happen is that I'm putting difficult feelings inside the container and loving kindness in them.
Yes.
Right? I'm offering my metta to anything.
That's the hack.
Not just the nice people, not just the people that I like, all people, all living beings everywhere. That's not like you zoom out and you're like, may all beings everywhere be happy, healthy, safe, free. That's easy. But you get to like some specific person that you don't really like very much, and that's not trivial. Someone who triggers you, someone who is unkind to you, someone who's abused you. Very challenging.
Yeah, most challenging. That's Jesus Christ right there.
I couldn't have said anything better than that. That's beautiful.
That's like, like the epic description of someone loving you while you are completely destroying.
So the Bhagavad-Gita, when Arjuna has to fight, is related to Jesus Christ on the cross, right? Using everything to go deeper, not just the blissful experiences, using everything to wake up, not just the pleasurable experiences, using everything to love more, serve more, grow more, not just the things that look spiritual on the outside.
Aaron said, my guru said, struggle is the essence of life. And the spirit of Tantra Yoga is going through these struggles fearlessly and gaining from them in all spheres of life. Clash. I like that he brought that in. Just that term Tantra.
Yeah.
And this is what we're talking about.
That's right.
Tantra is this term
of
using these things that are not always spiritually out front. Like sex, for example. Sex is another powerful way to bring one into connection with spirit, money, all the things that you were talking about. And how when we alchemize them, it's like, this is the definition of Tantra.
David Nagel had me watch many movies while we were working together. I would pay him lots of money to sit next to him while watching a movie, and to write down where I got triggered, where I had a negative experience, because it was highlighting my growth edge. It's a movie, right? It's not happening to me. It's not real. All the movies I watched with him were, actually one of them was dramatized, but it was based on a documentary, what we watched together. But in general, it was like, it's not happening to me, so why am I getting all hot and bothered? And looking at that, and again, increasing my range, increasing my capacity to hold the container, to see it. And just to connect the dots, like, this is the heart of activism, right? When we're talking about world injustice and working to change what's happening, we can't do that if we're not willing to see it. And all of our capacity as activists starts here. If we can't see our own struggle, our own limitation, our own unconsciousness, we can't do anything about it. It's hiding out.
And if we can see it, there's the capacity to be more authentic in the actions we take to counteract, and the actions we take to better the world. Because if we see something and we haven't really connected to all of ourselves, then we will end up doing the remedy that someone else is really good at, but you're not good at. That's the whole idea of Dharma. Like, what's your Dharma? And that's, again, back to the Bhagavad-Gita. And Krishna was just like, what is your Dharma as a warrior, as a Kshatriya? And really getting to understand, like for example, with the spiritual bypassing thing, I lived as a monk in a temple for 6 years. And I witnessed the power of being absorbed in a temple and what happens to the surrounding area of the temple. The entire city is blessed by the continuous prayers of these monks, the continuous loving, the continuous showing up, going out and distributing Bhagavad-Gitas and bringing and blessing food and feeding people, all these things that is not directly going out and dealing with the activists' mission, going out and dealing with like voting and all these things. And at the same time, just to honor that, like, okay, if someone's actual authentic journey is to remove themselves to a certain degree from the world and work on themselves, then that is just as powerful as the person with the sign. That's their version of protesting.
Well, and again, I think that we can look at it physically and we can look at it energetically.
Yes.
Because, all of this in the container, that we're not talking about right and wrong. We're not talking about one being better than the other. And just to discern that when the energetics are fear and avoidance, that's what's happening.
Yes.
So you can run and hide while living in the ashram, and you can just as easily run and hide while being an activist.
Nowhere to run.
And you can get unconditionally free by looking at the truth of yourself and the world in the ashram and on the streets protesting. So I love these.
What are we getting? What is my Dharma? Yes, exactly. What is my Dharma? What is Dharma? That's a big one for our authenticity and visibility
work
program.
That's right.
Shine your light. Dharma is defined by someone's authenticity. It's the same thing.
Yes.
Who is the authentic you? What are you meant to come here and do? How do you find that? How do you figure it out? It's a big, like, who am I? What do I do? What is my offering?
This just took me someplace also. You know what? I think that when you and I get on together, we just gotta like give space for a lot of
traveling
Yeah,
ideas.
because it's very expansive and not necessarily, we're not like trying to organize all the ideas for everybody. We're just
Fuck organizing ideas.
generating. So totally unexpected, but what came up for me when you said that was that when I really understand the principle of Dharma and know that everyone has unique roles and that the work of understanding your Dharma requires self-reflection, like it's not necessarily something that someone else can tell you. That's actually a key to renouncing codependency. Because then I'm like, I don't know what this person's Dharma is. Mm-hmm. I don't know Trump's Dharma. I don't know George Floyd's Dharma. I don't know your Dharma. Not really. I'm not the authority on it. You are.
Yeah.
It's none of my business at that level.
Yes.
To judge and micromanage, like these people should be doing this and these people should be doing this, and therefore this is right and this is wrong.
Though I feel like the best business manager is one that can really see where certain people fit. How does that connect to that piece? The amazing leader that can see that.
Tiffany Johnson, the business manager for Jesse Johnson Coaching, is brilliant at seeing other people's brilliance, specifically in terms of building a team. It's true. That seems to be part of her purpose in life. Yeah. But ultimately, it's her choice. And she could say to me, Jesse, I don't want to do that anymore. And that's not mine to control.
Sure.
And same thing, if
you could be like, but that's your Dharma.
Yeah. Who am I to say that to her? And similarly, I think part of her skill, part of her brilliance in that is that she doesn't just tell people this is what you're brilliant at. She asks, what do you love to do?
Well,
what do you want to do? And that's a huge part of it.
Would you guys say you know what your Dharma is? Just type in the chat. Do you have a sense and feeling of connectedness to what your action and service is, what you're meant to do in this world?
And I feel suddenly protective. Like I can feel some people in the room who are like, oh my God, I have to answer the question. This is like, it's a feeling. It's a knowing.
It's a resting.
It's a resting. Yes.
Relief.
So the truth is, I know you all know. And some of you, when Sri asked the question, might be like, yes. And some of you, when Sri asked the question, might be like, whoa, why is he asking that? I know that you know. So really the question is, are you connected to your knowing? And this reminds me of Abraham Hicks. Like they open up every single freaking session saying, are you knowing what you're wanting? Are you knowing what you're wanting? Yeah. It's like, it's not a question of are you wanting? It's not a question of do you have purpose? Do you have Dharma? We all have it. We all know it. We all feel it. And we come in and out of connection to it. What's the song that you wrote? It's Surrender, about pulsing in and out. You just put it on your social too. Can you share that lyric? Do you know what I'm talking about? Watch it go back and forth. Yeah,
a smile will come and go. Watch it go back and forth. A pendulum is to and fro, in and out of source. A smile will come and go. Watch it go back and forth. Here I'm all alone with thoughts of happiness forced. I'm destitute, searching for fire to light my torch. So that whole verse is like about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you do that again? Can you do that again and annotate?
Yeah. Surrender. Come as you are.
That's right.
How does it start again? Second verse. A smile will come and go.
A pendulum.
A pendulum is to and fro, in and out of source. So like a pendulum is just constantly rocking, you know. And sometimes we're with the divine, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're sad. It's just the nature of a pendulum.
Breath goes in and out.
It's just what it does, you know. And in that same way, it's just the nature of the material world. It's the nature of a soul being in a body, experiencing life. It's just natural. Happiness and sadness comes and goes like winter, spring, summer seasons or whatever. There's this verse in the Bhagavad-Gita, happiness and sadness comes and goes like the changing of the seasons. It's natural.
It's natural.
It's normal. It's, and to get connected to the naturalness of that one moment you'll be happy, one moment that you'll be sad, and to bring yourself into full welcoming and loving of both sides. That's the magic of that verse too. Pendulum is to and fro, in and out of source. A smile will come and go. Watch it.
Go. No?
A smile will come and go. Watch it go back and forth.
I see.
Smile will come and go. Smile will come and go. Happiness, sadness. And here I'm all alone with thoughts of happiness forced. So a lot of times when we're alone and when we're cut off from the world, we're pretending a lot. Hiding comes hand in hand with pretending. Yes.
Smiling, forcing the smile. Namaste.
Yeah.
Hello. Like that whole thing, if it's not authentic, if it's not real, it's not only not the thing that it looks like, and you're sending a mixed message to the universe, but that is like, it undermines the smiling transmission. This is why we've been teaching fuck faking it.
Yeah.
It's like much more tender, much more wanted, much more valuable to let ourselves be where we are and love that. Love from there.
Yeah.
Because there's love everywhere. As you're talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, the pendulum, we experience connection and disconnection, but we are always in God's arms.
Yeah. Somehow or other, this lie started that when the pendulum is on one side, that's the right side.
Yes.
Pendulum is swinging left, it's right. It's
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is Manifestors Anonymous. We're kind of debunking that left is right and right is wrong. We're debunking that.
Yeah.
And both are part of the divine plan. Both are part of the potential of energy. Both are part of life. And to come more into that unconditional loving of both sides of it.
It's really about it's so funny. This keeps coming up. Some of you guys will really enjoy this. Becca, it's dismantling the patriarchy. It's dismantling white supremacy to do this work that we're talking about and calling Manifestors Anonymous. Because all that stuff comes from this very puritanical, moralistic, authoritarian identification that these behaviors, words, actions, clothings, roles are superior, morally, spiritually superior to these.
Yeah.
And therefore you should do these things. And with that instruction, we will control you.
The suffering of this particular color or group doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Because they're not part of the ideals and structures that we hold. Therefore, we can do whatever we want to this group because it just doesn't matter, So it's almost in a way not wanting to look at that suffering, that discomfort, that it's the same thing, but just like doing it to a whole other, like outside of yourself, doing it to another race or group of people.
That's right. We've been having this conversation so much for the last 6 months, but this is really why spiritual work, social justice work, it's non-different.
Yeah.
It's just a slight shift in who we're focusing on, or the scale that we're focusing on, maybe is even a better way of saying it. The spiritual work is much more internal, in my experience anyway. That's how I would describe it. And social justice work is often very external. Yeah. But it's the same work. It's like, let's look at what's really going on here. Let's look at what's true.
Which makes me think, what are some steps and actions? What are some steps and actions that you take to ground in and to maybe do a more take a more mature action instead of the spiritual bypass? How do you stay aware of it? How do you become more embodied?
It's funny as I hear that question today, because we've talked about that a lot, but today
we're always talking about it.
I have two very strong responses. The first is that spiritual practice will ultimately clean this stuff up. So like, even if, because I don't even think it's an if, that I've got my own spiritual bypasses. It's whatever my blind spots are, wherever it is that I can't see, that I'm not prioritizing truth, consciousness, awakening. Eventually, my practice will show it to me. I trust the teachings. There is a kind of, and you've said this to me a lot in the last year, I would say that like, so what, they're spiritually bypassing, like they'll figure it out.
Yeah,
you know?
Especially when we see that person is so sincere at their work and sincere at their practice. Yeah. They're doing a little spiritual bypassing.
If they're just bypassing, that's a different story. But if they're spiritually bypassing, if they're doing spiritual practice and missing some things along the way, they'll figure it out eventually. Yeah. God will conspire to give them the experience they need. And I will say that hiring coaches completely changed my paradigm around this. Mm-hmm. And I generally talk about my work with my coaches as being the key to me making money and building this business and having this life of my dreams with you and everything like that. And all that's true. And my work with my coaches, I could justify it. I could justify the $1 million+ that I've spent on coaching just for the sake of this. Because my coaches were like, I kind of feel like had my head in their hand and were like shoving it, like, look, like a little Clockwork Orange, like,
this
open
is the
those
whole
eyes.
Picture. This is the whole picture.
And really challenging me to face whatever, what they just like had almost like a torch on whatever it was that I wasn't seeing. Mm-hmm. And so for all that time with Marla and David in particular, my one-on-one coaches, those were the ones that really knew me the best and were able to really poke at me the most. They were consistently like, how about this thing that you haven't looked at? How about this thing that you don't want to feel? How about this thing? Like, oh, you're getting comfortable? Where else can we get uncomfortable? Like they were never stopped. And I think in many ways that it just cranked up the fire for me and sped things up. So, and also changed the form. I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing in the way that I'm doing it without them. Not just without them, but without having said yes to that exponential purification.
I love that. I think of the power of just being seen, someone that's outside of it, that can see what's going on. And I also think about the beauty of association, just the power of being, like you said, sometimes you're just sitting with him while you're watching a movie or something, you know? Yeah. Beauty of, if anybody have been next to someone that was like Amma or like a personality that dedicated their lives to their spiritual growth, you just sit next to them and it's just like, wow, what's going on? My mind is quieter. My heart is lighter. More ideas are coming in suddenly, So the power of association. Like you guys being here right now, this is an association. This is as a sangha. And it allows for the truth to come forth more. We're taking association of this helicopter right now.
The helicopter is saying yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. People fly. You can fly too.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. So let's I think that there's more for us to talk about. And let's pause here today. We have a whole framework we came up with, we didn't share, but I have 2 questions to give you guys that you can contemplate and chew on as a way of taking this session into action, which is one of the things we talked about last week. And it's just always important to how are you going to integrate whatever it is that you've learned here today? Actually, maybe just one. I think it's investigating what we call the sales questions for yourself. So the first question, and this answers Vivian's request earlier for the framework. We have so many trainings on sales, some of them free, some of them small amounts, some of them bigger amounts of money.
JesseJohnsonCoaching.com.
If you're in any way confused, just email the team info@JesseJohnsonCoaching and ask for what you want. the first question in any sales conversation is, what do you want? And so to ask yourself, what do you want? What are you creating in your life right now? When you think of yourself as a manifestation expert, what is it that you're manifesting? And then ask yourself, you can ask yourself the second question too, which is, why haven't you in the past? Why isn't it already a description of your life? What's been hard for you? What's been the block for you up until now? And then the third question is, what happens if you don't change? What happens if you don't create what you want? What happens if you don't do that work? What happens if you don't move through whatever has stopped you already? And there's no right or wrong to any of these questions. It's so deeply personal. And
it's a practice,
it's constantly
too.
Changing. I mean, we could do this every hour and it would be different. So this is a practice that you can repeat. But take yourself as deep as you can go. You know you're deep when you feel it. Okay, when you feel, if it's just like like that kind of shallow emotional experience, then just see, is there more here? Is there more underneath that, like, I'm hungry for in the desire question? Is there more deeper that I could go with in really looking at what happens if I don't clean this up? You know, so many people come to me to make more money. If that's one of the pieces for you about what you want, what happens if you don't? Like, really ask yourself, what happens if you don't figure money out? What happens if you don't make the money that you want? What happens if you don't? It's not right or wrong. Not right or wrong. You haven't done anything wrong, and figuring money out doesn't mean that you've done it right. This is all about helping you become the powerful, conscious creator that you were born to be. And that sounds so cliche, but it is the right language. It's the right language.
Cliches work really powerfully in poetry.
Yeah.
When they're used intentionally.
I mean, Katy Perry's a genius for a
Katy
reason.
Perry.
Cliche queen.
Cliche after cliche. Best-selling album.
Thank you guys so much for your engagement and questions. Please use comments to tell us what you get out of this. And if you go home and you do this exercise for homework, tell us what you discovered. And if you want our personal association and support, email info@jessiejohnsoncoaching.com and we'll hook you up.
Beautiful.
Thanks, SriKala.
Thank you, Jessie. Let's do this again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can answer some of the other questions.
Perfect. Yeah, maybe you want to do it next week?
Let's do it.
We'll be here next week. The
next
two
week.
of us.
Boom.
Hello.
Yes. Okay.
Love
See you
y'all.
later.